Welcome to This Prepared Life. I'm Allison. I am so glad you're here. Today we are going to talk about the 5 factors that impact food storage. Welcome to my homestead kitchen, and we are talking about food storage today, which is one of my absolute favorite topics and one of the most important things that we need to understand about food storage are the factors that impact shelf life and nutritional content of food. We are investing our time, our energy, our money into our food storage, into our kitchen pantry, into our short-term layer, and into our long-term food storage. So we do not want that to go to waste. So let's talk about the things that you need to be mindful of in where you are storing your food. The first one is temperature. The ideal food storage temperature for your food storage is between 40 and 70 degrees. You really want to avoid storing your food storage in a space where there are huge temperature shifts in either direction. You don't want your canned foods freezing, and you don't want your food getting really hot. Because of that, I really strongly discourage attics and garages for food storage. So depending on your storage temperature, that's going to impact the nutritional content of your food and the shelf life of your food. For every 10 to 18 degrees above that optimal storage condition, you lose about half the shelf life of your food. So if you are storing your food storage in a garage that swings up to 90 degrees, then you are drastically impacting how long you can store that food. So being mindful of that, it doesn't mean the food is gone bad. It means that you need to monitor that temperature and have a plan for rotation. The second factor to consider in where to store your food storage is light. And light can impact the shelf life and the nutritional content of the food in your food storage. And the best way to mitigate that is the type of packaging you use. If you are using glass jars, obviously light is going through these jars. So rotate this food faster. Only use glass for your short-term storage. Use something like Mylar for your long-term storage. Or monitor your conditions in the environment of where you are storing your food so that it is not in sunlight or light. You can turn the light off or put these in some kind of container so that light isn't impacting the food. The next factor that is incredibly important for food storage, shelf life, and nutritional content is oxygen. As foods are exposed to oxygen, they start to oxidize, and this can greatly impact the shelf life and nutritional content. So using airtight packaging such as Mylar, glass jars, or Mylar inside of a food safe bucket is one way that you can help mitigate that. Also, using oxygen absorbers in your food storage is going to help retain that nutritional value. The next factor that impacts your food storage and where you may want to store your food storage is moisture. So moisture, when it is introduced to foods in our food storage, causes mold growth, bacteria. We do not want moisture introduced into our food storage. So again, using packaging like glass jars or Mylar that prevent moisture getting into our food is incredibly important. And just as a side note, and I have shared this before, but I am going to share it again, buckets are not air and moisture proof. Buckets are porous. Their plastic is porous. So over time, air and moisture is going to permeate into this container and the food inside it. So for long term, you really need to be lining your buckets with Mylar for optimal shelf life and optimal nutritional content. The final thing we are going to talk about is protecting your food storage from insects and rodents. If you have never had an infestation of pantry moths, good for you. Oh my gosh, it is miserable and they're incredibly hard to get rid of. So I strongly suggest all food in your kitchen pantry be stored in containers that protect from insects. If there happens to be insects or larvae or eggs inside the food and those hatch, they'll be stuck inside a jar. Other things that you can do to protect against insects and rodents are, some people like to freeze their dry goods. You do need to do this on a cycle because the freezing only kills the insects, not the larvae. So you would freeze, let the next batch hatch, freeze again, freeze again. I choose not to do that, and I use oxygen absorbers in my food storage because if there is no oxygen, there are no insects. And there are multiple studies out there that show that oxygen absorbers are a great way to control insects if you can keep the oxygen level down to a certain level for a certain number of days. Packaging, freezing, oxygen absorbers, and then in the case of rodents, you have to protect your food storage by putting it in containers that rodents can't get into. I don't keep Mylar bags just out on my shelf because these are very easily chewed through by mice or rats or something like that. We don't have a huge mice issue, which is surprising because we have a 1927 farmhouse. So I would think that we would have an issue, but we don't. But in Creepy Basement, we do keep out traps and sticky traps just as a preventative. I am also constantly checking my food storage so that I can identify if there are any issues going on before it becomes a major issue. So monitoring your food storage, rotating it through, knowing what is happening and going on is one of the best ways to protect against insects and rodents because, like I said at the beginning of this video, our food storage is an investment of our energy, our time, and our finances. And it is our responsibility to make sure that the hard work we are doing and the money we are investing is not just getting thrown away because something had moisture in it, something got exposed to air and sunlight or insects or rodents. So again, those 5 factors are temperature, light, oxygen, moisture, and insects and rodents.